Hi, good afternoon, FAL, second semester students. This is the 4th of August, and we are now at the start of semester 1. I have uploaded my welcome video for you on ECI, and I'm just going to go over some things briefly in it, but this is our first official lecture for this semester. Next week there will be a face-to-face Zoom presentation, so if you are around you can actually ask questions. I'm just going to share my PowerPoint with you now, so let me quickly go to share. Here we go. Sharing that. Yes, there we go. So welcome to everyone. Still lockdown. Yes, I think it's about day 135. I'm not too sure. Beautiful rain here in PE today and slipper. So I've got my nice shawl on me to keep me warm. So the topic for the first few weeks in semester 1 is going to be teaching language grammar, which you've all asked me about. So it's teaching language structure and use in the first additional language classroom, SP and FT. So welcome to this session. I'm just quickly going to go over what's on the welcome video sections. This is the Mentimeter. The question is, how are you feeling at the start of semester 2? And I have changed the Menti password. I will do this periodically because it changes every 2 days. So I changed it yesterday and I'll change it again tomorrow. So if you can't get in, go back to ECI and check the changed password. I'll be changing it tomorrow morning again. So how are you feeling? Are you excited about the new semester? Happy? I hope you're not feeling angry or sad or worried. I think you've gained a lot of experience and understanding, as you all have, during this lockdown semester. And we've grown wings, I think, to actually take on so much during this time. So that is the first little task you've got to do, and I will show you what you're feeling next week as well. And then the other one is the Kahoot quiz, which is a fun quiz really on how well you listen to the opening of my welcome video and how well you understand the structures of ECI and the presentation of this course. So that's quite easy and quite a bit of fun. Okay. Closes on the 9th of August at midnight. Right, so if you think about our learning outcomes for languages, according to CAP's document, in the first semester we looked at listening and speaking. And then in the second part of semester 1, we looked at reading and viewing. We went through all those texts, the massive assignment 3 assignment. You did all those lesson plans, you worked so hard. It was all part of the LOs for semester 1. And now we're coming on to semester 2. And we're going to look at language use, which is specifically grammar in the first part. And then we're going to look at writing, which is one of my favorites. How we're going to write for different kinds of writing for different audiences using various conventions, formats. But I think we've really got to tackle this whole thing of teaching grammar, and hopefully you'll be able to start doing that today, and then I'll be continuing with it next week. This all feeds into your assignment 1, which I have put on ECI, which is all about grammar. Right, so unit 1, as you can see, we started off today with identifying why it is so important to teach language and structure and use in the classroom. That's all we're going to concentrate on today. Yes, if you think about all the little typos you make, and there we go, grammar give many problems. So you'd have to know that that isn't really right, and how would you actually correct that? And I'm going to give you some strategies for that today as well. And then we'll do the rest next 3 weeks. Next week we'll be looking at grammar teaching strategies, then we'll look at resources and grammar games, and finish off with assessment again before we get on to writing. Okay. Again, yes, our favorite book is Ferreira, and there are a few references to it, obviously the CAPS documents. And I've looked a bit at, again, Clean. I think he's got quite a bit to say in terms of teaching strategies, and especially for writing. I think he's got quite a good chapter on writing as well. Right, so CAPS language teaching practices and principles. So if you go back to the CAPS document, of course, Love of Learning is my favorite. You'll see that all language learning must be text-based. And if you went back to your assignment 3, you'll see that many of you are kept on saying, how would you present this? It must be text-based, can't just be isolated as a task. It must be related to some kind of visual or written or some kind of text. So all language learning is text-based. It must be taught in an integrated manner. So It will include often listening, reading, often it should include writing, speaking. So language is not just a whole lot of grammar rules. It's got to be integrated as a writing exercise, perhaps, or a listening exercise, or speaking, or all of them, all the skills. You as a teacher have to mediate and scaffold the learning. You've got to help your learners to understand, establish their prior knowledge, and then build on that. So they might be able to understand what they are doing, and they can build new knowledge. We'll look again at questions, comprehensible input. Today is very important as well. And then you've got to make sure that it's learner-centered. Oh, please, no more teacher talk all the time, teacher driving the lesson. They need to do the work, the students. And it must be communicative. That means they must be doing something with what they are learning. It must be applied all the time. Very important. Right, so again, I'm going again for you to identify your teaching style. Some of you are teachers already. Some of you haven't even got to the classroom yet. But think back to the teachers that you've come across. What were your teaching styles like? Did you encourage participation in the class, or do you encourage participation? You want your students to interact. You can see here in this classroom there, in small little groups. The teachers are driving it. You could possibly have more learner-centeredness than this what we've seen. Or, yeah, we've got students getting together, working together, collaborating, and teachers going around facilitating the practices. Or are you very much the teacher in front, teacher tell, take out your books, control, organize, manage, no talking, that kind of classroom? And you can see the effects on some of the students there are totally bored. It's a very empty classroom. It must be doing social distancing there because they're not sitting close to each other. Okay. And so you go on, wah, 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 and nobody's paying attention and everybody feels quite bored and they're not learning very much in that classroom. Right. So language study is best done in context. It's text embedded and it's established in something. Right, let's see what that means. It's not an isolated rule-based activity. It's not learning the different tenses. It's not learning how you differentiate passive from active voice, or how you instill the rules of direct speech or indirect speech. It's not isolated as a rules-based activity. It means that if you're going to study something specifically language-related, grammatical, like tenses or parts of speech, these must be part of the text, whether it is visual, whether it is spoken, whether it is a video, whether it's a play, whether it's a poem. It must be part of a text. It mustn't be isolated from a context. It must be within that context. And within this context, your learners are producing something. They are speaking or writing, so you do direct and indirect speech. They are actually producing something related to that. Or they are listening or reading something that is showing we're going to look at the present perfect tense today as one of the examples. They're encountering that tense in a piece of writing. It's not just abstract, it's embedded in a text. Okay. So we need, again, this is Krashen's word, comprehensible input. That means what they get in, and output, what they produce. So it must be comprehensible. Comprehensible means it's what their proficiency level is, plus something else. Something makes it a bit more challenging that builds them up from that basic level to another level. So to do that, we always have to look at their prior knowledge, and we must give them suitable pre-listening and pre-reading activities before we read or write or listen to something. This is to establish their connection, and we can build on what they know. So when they understand in our target language, English, what is going to happen in the reading or the listening or the speaking, they are exposed to comprehensible input. All right. So if they've got the pre-listening exercise, the pre-reading exercise, the pre-writing exercise, and they understand it, they are being exposed to comprehensible input. And when they've got this exposure, they're able to read, write, listen with understanding. And it's what Krashen speaks about in our second language acquisition theories. Okay, that's what they need. They need to understand. And if they don't understand, you're not going anywhere. So that's what Krashen says. If you look at the I is their current level of competence. You can see you've got I plus 2, I plus 1, and I plus 0. For I plus 2, it is too difficult for them. If they can't understand, if there's 10 words in the reading text they can't understand, it is too difficult for them. If it's I+1 is perfect. It's a bit challenging, but not overpowering, and they can grow and develop. You can see that he's smiling or she's smiling. If it's I+0, they are going to be so bored, and there you can see they are sleeping. So if you, in grade 9, are still trying to teach them nouns, which are really basic understandings, they are not going to be very challenged, and they are most probably going to go to sleep. And then they've got to have an output. So with every input from you, or the book, or the text, they've got to do something with it. So whether it's a speech, or a report back, or a little paragraph, they've got to do something. What is their output to show that they are reinforced and that they can understand that concept? So it could be putting a cartoon together, they could do a graph, a diagram, a poem, personal connection, reflection. So give them some kind of task at the end to do. Okay. Right, so this again, I'm going to go over, reinforce the importance of prior knowledge. Without this prior knowledge, you can't learn new things. So if I don't know 1 and 1 is 2, how am I going to learn 2 times 2? Because I still don't have the basic concept. So I have to have prior knowledge. Otherwise, I can't learn further. I have to build up to that. So you can't just go and leap into past perfect tense when they don't even understand the past tense. Does that make sense? So learning is a process of making sense of new information by applying existing understanding to those new experiences and ideas. So you're making sense by applying what you already know. Okay, and teachers got to determine that. Academic learning, this is our cognitive help, okay, cognitive academic language practices, will not be meaningful unless it's embedded in learning activities that build on this knowledge. So if you haven't established that in your pre-lesson, your orientation, you're going to leave the students behind. They're going to have that miserable face, or they're going to have a sleeping face. Okay, they're not going to know what's going on. Right. This is quite an interesting learning style from Kolb, David Kolb, where he places learners right at the center of the learning experience. There they are, right at the center. Not you, teacher, the learners are. They're at the center of learning. And this is the cycle they need to go through. So the first thing you've got to do is establish their concrete experience. How are they feeling? What do they know? Establish that connection with them. And let's get beyond just asking them questions. Let's get them text. Let's get them pictures. Let's get them visuals. Let's get them orientated and establish what their prior knowledge is. The second thing is they must observe and reflect. So they need models, they need practices to actually build on that experience. They need to know what they are trying to learn. They've got to reflect on it. So you've got to take them to that stage. And then you can get into the abstract learning, the more, not the concrete, but the more abstract type of learning where their concepts are coming through. They start understanding how the past works, or the past continues, or they have a deep knowledge of direct and indirect speech, okay, in the passive and the active, and why one is better than the other. All right, so they have the deep understanding. And then the best thing is that they start doing something. They start actively experiencing that. So they will then write a dialogue using direct speech, or they will now write a formal letter using the passive voice or the direct voice. Okay, so you're going to apply that knowledge. So I quite like this idea. I'm going to upload the PowerPoint so you can go back and really squiz this out. Okay. And then I love this little poster. To learn, students need to do something. Don't just say at the end of the lesson, so what did you learn? And say goodbye to them, as your lesson plan sometimes ended. They've got to hand in something, some kind of task which illustrates that they've done something. Do that little presentation, write a report back, give a reflection on the lesson, do a little quiz, let them do something. Right, so now, our grammar rules. Some of you really know lots of grammar rules. I see that. I think Google helps a bit there. Are they comprehensible input? Are they I+1? And do they give output for the students to show that they understand? Let's have a look. There are your grammar rules. First one is a complete sentence must include a noun and a verb. Then a complete sentence must include a subject and a predicate. And it goes all the way down. What is a compound sentence? Do they have to know these rules by heart? Okay. No, they don't. Please, they don't. Grammatical exposure to rules are not comprehensible input. So you're not exposing them to things that they need to know. Comprehensible input increases language proficiency, and this is not going to give it to them. There's nothing interesting about the rules of parts of speech or third person singular. Really, there's nothing interesting about it, and it's going to put your students to sleep, okay? And they're not going to increase their proficiency by knowing those rules. I know I've taught English second language for many years, and it's never helped in writing and speech and any other things. So rules are never really heard outside a language classroom. So they're never going to use it again. And they're always going to look up those rules if they're desperate to find out what they are. So look at that big cross. They're not important. Traditional grammar-based teaching. Let's see what Cummins says about this. Research shows that grammar rules are very fragile. That means they break and they disappear very quickly and are rapidly forgotten. Students can be drilled in knowing what the past continuous tense looks like. They go and write an essay and they get it all wrong because they haven't acquired that rule and they don't really understand it. So we go again to the tip of the iceberg. There it is. There's your grammar rules right at the tip. I think it's the very, very top. And traditional instruction, which focuses on grammar and output, is just on that tip there. And it's going to melt away very quickly. They're not going to understand it, and they're not going to remember it. So remember that every time you teach those grammar rules. Let's get rid of those grammar rules. Let's kick them out. Okay. Here's this iceberg model again, and it's just a revision on BICS and KELP here. So basic language proficiency is surface learning. There it is, right at the top. And that includes your vocabulary, your grammar, pronunciation rules, and all that. They're right at the top. They're going to be forgotten straight away. So don't plow massive energy into it. BICS does not give you KELP proficiency, which is your cognitive academic language proficiency. There it is, right at the bottom. This is when you're using language functionally. You're understanding the deeper, not embedded, the abstract forms where you can discuss and problem solve in a language class. Okay. So to acquire KELP, you need this for reasoning, problem solving, critical thinking, general academic achievement. You have to have the KELP. You can't just do it with BICS. BICS is just the conversational. Remember our case study? And to acquire this KELP, they need a vocab, so that's very important, extensive. They need to understand concepts, and that could be how the past perfect works. And they have to know how to decontextualize academic language to understand it. So you've got to give them the tools and the strategies to do this. So it's quite complex, but for academic success, higher education success, you need KELP. Okay, you're not going to get through with BICS. Let's just have a look again at this little pyramid. At the top end, you've got BICS, and this is for your friends, your informal interaction. So often you find students can actually speak very well, they can chat away, but when it comes to writing and reading, they're really bad because they haven't got the KELP. This is the abstract, context-reduced type language. It's very abstract, but you have to have this kind of understanding to discuss content in the classroom and to write about it. To say hi and goodbye, little speeches, you can get by with BICS, but you're going to be stuck there. You've got to get your students into the deeper KELP by helping them. Okay, so how do we process input? How do we get this input, this comprehensible input into our students? We've got to push them into it, okay? And that's to become part of the linguistic system, but how do we push them into it? How do we actually do it? We're not by teaching them rules. Let's see how we can do it. We've got to immerse them in books and texts and newspapers and magazines to see a range of grammatical structures and words and vocab, and all this is going to give them the comprehensible input. So we've got to immerse them. That means drown them in text. So you can't just go and stand and talk in front of the class. You've got to give them books and papers, things to read. They've got to be exposed to the text. And this is going to promote better understanding of the language usage. They can become more critical of language use. If they've been immersed in text, This is better than any of those old-based methods of rule-based grammar teaching. And this is what we've got here, is the comprehensible input umbrella. There's lots of things they can do under this umbrella. You can talk about movies, you can have a picture and you have questions and answers about pictures. You can read and discuss sections in a book. You can embed reading in all kinds of ways. You can draw and you can listen. You can do so many things under this umbrella, which is text-based, which is inductive, which is going to include some grammatical aspect, but it's not going to be rule-based. Okay, I love Einstein. He says, never memorize what you can look up in books. So this is what I said, if they're desperate to know the rule of the first person singular, they can go on Google and they can find out what that is. So research indicates that proficiency will improve when you as a teacher encourage discussions about grammatical items that they have first of all read, heard, or spoken, not before. You don't just pull out rules out of somewhere, out of a vacuum. You have first gone into reading things, speaking about things, and then they can start seeing how it's used, and then they can gain proficiency in that. And so in this way, we're going to push them into these structured processing of this information in a learner-centered classroom. So how can we do this? So I can say, okay, here are 15 rules that it's okay to break. And I'll just read those. First two are, you can now end a sentence with a preposition, okay? And you can start a sentence with and. Break the rules. And if you take them through a text that talks about breaking rules, you find that they might understand this. So learners discuss language forms of understanding. They understand that what a preposition is and how a sentence can end, and they understand you can start with because or and. Nowadays, it's not old-fashioned anymore. You can do that. And they do this in socially significant interactions. So they're doing class when you're discussing about it, okay? So you've read a text, you've seen how it works, and you discuss it. And then you write something about it afterwards. So here's an example, input processing to learn about the present perfect tense. So we're going to do a bit of grammar here. So you want the learners to construct sentences containing information about where they live and how long they have lived there. Okay, so we're going to do this in sentences. You tell them to bring their picture of their house or a house they would like to live in to class. Okay, so they don't have to bring their real house. And then, so they can choose an imaginary place, and then the pictures of the house, and you give them 3 random dates in the past that they must choose. So very easy, bring a picture of your house or have it on your phone. We're going to do some things about a house. So what they do, they look at the dates and they decide on the date that they moved into their house. Okay, there's different houses. That's actually a container house. Isn't that quite nice? Oh, that's the house we all like to live in. Okay, so they can bring any house along. They use their current address or any other address they would like to have. They write a sentence stating when they moved into their house. They have to use the word since in their sentence as well. For instance, since we moved into our new home at 23 Kai Road in July 2020, we have walked to school, okay? Or we have ridden a bike, or we have exercised, or we have learned a lot, or we have started a garden, okay? Read your sentence to the class or to your group, so you are sharing information. And then we're going to read a passage which makes use of the present past tense, so you've actually just created it. So the activity is look at my sentence. There we go. I read it to the class. Here's the rule, the present perfect tense. Can you see it's something that has started in the past and it might continue to the present. It uses the word has and have plus the past participle. And then we've got a passage, and there I've put in italics all the uses of the past perfect. 6 months have passed since then. Sino has exercised every day and has shed 15 kilograms. He has bought new clothes. He has changed his diet. He only eats vegetables, fruit, and fish now. Sino has made new friends and has spent time helping others. Although he has been busy, Sino has made time to continue his PGCE studies. All right, I've put them in italics. You would then possibly say to them in groups, go and find all the past perfect tenses, and we're going to chat about how they are different. Why some using have and some are using has. what is past and bought, the past participle. So you can then discuss it in this context, and obviously from here you're going to ask them to write a little passage about what you have done in the last 6 months. So this is a kind of written activity. So that's one way to teach the present perfect tense. The inductive method, remember inductive is discovery, where you give them models and examples and they start seeing the linkage and they discover a rule by looking at all those observations. You always should use real text or pictures to do this kind of language study. It's never in a vacuum. And for instance, you can use pictures to learn about prepositions. Isn't that fun? Okay. So here I've got a whole lot of masks. Can you see it's topical and relevant? Stop coronavirus. Okay, there we go, in Africa. And there's different kinds of masks that people wear, right? If you can read this, you are too close. So you can have a grammar lesson where you would try and say how prepositions fit into the use of a mask. So where do you place a mask? It's under your eyes, it's on top of your chin, it's behind your ears, it's in front of your face, it's on your cheeks, it's under this, it's not over that. So you use all different things to talk about the position of a mask, and they could demonstrate their masks in class, where they say if they put it behind your ears, put it on top of your head, and so they can see how it would relate to that. Okay, different ways to wear a mask. They could write a little essay about that. Okay, a little paragraph about that too. So you could also use pictures to learn about adjectives. These are all the grammatical terms. So you might say you're going to tell the students to write down the name of objects or abstract nouns that they see in different pictures. So I've got a whole lot of sport pictures. This is netball. You can say, okay, what nouns can you see? Well, you see players, you see the ball, you see the hoop, you see the court, you see tackies, you see bibs, you see hands up. So you see all these kinds of things. Abstract things are things that the girls might be feeling. They might be feeling tense, they might be feeling happy, they might be feeling anxious about losing, they might be feeling scared or nervous. So you try and think of as many as you can. There's another picture for the boys. What's happening in this picture? What can you see? The soccer ball, the boots, the players, the positions, the audience, or watching them, what do you call them? The sports fans, and the field, the markings in the field. And what do you see in their faces? You feel anxiety, you see the competitiveness, you see the elation, the excitement. So you get them to list all the abstract nouns as well as the other nouns. And there's hockey as well. Get them to talk about that. They could bring their own sport pictures, or they could take them out of newspapers. And of course, the cricketers, the total elation and excitement he's feeling. Obviously, he's got someone out, very excited, and all the different equipment jargons that you could have here as well. Then you can say, write down adjectives to describe the noun. So if you've got cricket player, you can say the excited cricket player, or the ecstatic cricket player, or the scared cricket player, all right, or the worried. So you'd actually provide adjectives to describe those nouns, and then you could write a paragraph about this picture using those nouns and those adjectives. Okay. Also using pictures to learn about sentence construction. That's another way. You can look at the illustration, describe what is happening. There's also sport pictures. There's someone who has injured himself. I think it's a soccer player there, holding his shin. Or yes, someone's been limped off. He's one of the American footballers, I think, been taken off. He has someone about to score a goal. Yes, someone winning 100 meters maybe. So you describe what's happening. Choose a picture and describe what's happening. And then you must change that into a statement. So the first thing is a sentence construction. What is happening in the picture? And then you can change a statement into a question and say, what happened? So you say what happened, you say why it happened, when it happened, and where. So you encourage them using this visual to construct these sentences, all grammar related. Well, you might say, what about language errors? You are still worried about this incorrect work that everybody's doing all the time. Okay, you're a born editor. Well, what about writing, getting those students to write out those errors? Let me tell you, it doesn't work. I've done it. It makes no difference. The next essay, they do the same errors. So instead of writing out the correct form of the errors, teachers can make use of a reference number system. Let's look at this. You underline the errors and you write numbers referring to the grammatical explanations and the rules, okay? So you've got, this is what it looks like. Then they refer to the explanations because they've got to understand the reasons why it is wrong, and then they correct. They can also talk to their friends and say, have I corrected this correctly? Was it still an error? Why do you think it's still wrong? So you discuss it. You're not telling them, they are discovering this. Remember, it's inductive. That is the way to do it. So this is an example. Yesterday, the man panicked when he see there was too little time left, okay? There is the learner's writing, and I've got a 7, a 12.4, and a 9 there. Okay, this is quite tedious, I think, but it can work. Then you give the explanations. As they know 7, for verbs ending in C, there must be a K when suffixes beginning with a vowel are added. Okay, ending in C, all right, there must be a K added when suffixes beginning with a vowel are added. Okay, next one. A simple past tense describes the action that has happened at some time in the past. When you see, okay, that should be the simple past tense. And then what about to? You've got to and to. You went to town, that's a preposition. You went to, an adverb of degree. I want to do it, part of the infinitive to do. So which one is the correct way to say this? So what you do, you go and read the explanations, you correct the written work, you talk to your friends and say, is this correct now? And I rewrite it, revise it. And I write it like this. Yesterday, the man panicked, hence I'm adding the K, when he saw, I'm using the correct past tense, there was too little time left. To is the adverb of degree. All right, so you might have a list of rules that you tell them to paste into their books, and you just have to write those numbers. And this is good feedback, and they, at the end, they can go and correct the errors if you're into error correction like that. Okay, and it gets it right. So, how do we ensure learners are ready to learn? Okay, in your classroom. First of all, you've got to ensure that your activities and outcomes are achievable. Can they achieve what you're setting out to do? Some of your lesson plans, in lesson plans in assignment 3, you had so much to do in one lesson that I don't think you would have achieved what you've wanted to. Remember, sometimes less is more. They can actually consolidate and finish a lot easier. You need to help them understand. So you need to play a role, scaffolding and mediating, but not controlling. All right, you need to walk around and help them. Okay, mediate their learning. Relate learning to everyday experiences. Don't make it remote for things that they didn't understand or was not part of their world or something happened in the UK. Keep it where they are living. The external moderator spoke about someone did their task using selling houses and estate agents, and she was worried that students would know what this was all about. So be sure that you know you're relating to their experiences. Remember, that's prior knowledge. Structure it so that they can have an initial feeling of success. So they can create a sentence using since and read it to their friends, and everyone likes the sentence, they use it in clap. It gives them a positive attitude and they want to learn. Right, they feel happy then. And deliberately, you as a teacher, make the learning interesting, enjoyable, but also challenging. Remember, I+1 must be a bit more difficult so they can actually apply initially, yes, give them a feeling of success, but then make it a little challenging as well. This is a classroom I was in one of the schools here, and there you can see the teacher's hand there. They actually had the lyrics to a song, and they had to find different rhyming patterns within it, and she was going around helping them. You can see a group in the back there, they're busy discussing it amongst themselves. It's quite a nice mediated learning environment. Also, give them learning activities that are going to provoke curiosity. They're going to want to ask the word, why did this happen? How did it happen? What if this happened? So they must be inspired to want to find out more. The joy of learning mustn't be this, oh no, we're going to English again, I can't bear it, okay? Make it a happy time for them. Consider knowledge, skills, and attitudes that they have, they bring with them to the class. What kind of backgrounds do they come from? What kind of knowledge do they have? What are their skills? What are their attitudes towards certain things? Then develop understanding of concepts and principles, whatever they might be. Don't depend on recall of factual information. Remember, this is the lower level of Bloom's taxonomy. It's low order cognitive skills, routine skills, or numbering and things like that are also basic. This is not going to develop the kelp. Its recall is out. You can go look it up. Remember Einstein said, you go look it up if you want to find out. So is this your typical classroom? Hello students, let's start our lesson in frame 1. She will make us repeat again and again. Second frame. Repeat 10 times the different food tastes. And there the poor students will say, salty, sweet, bitter, sour, salty, sweet, bitter, sour. How boring is that, this whole repetition? And it's in here and it's out there. Think about their different diverse cultural backgrounds and their linguistic backgrounds that they come from. You must be cognizant of this the whole time. Look at this classroom. Okay, it's basically all the boys, the girls are sitting on this side. If you just look at them, you can see there are different religions there, there are different races, there are different cultures, there are different languages. Consider this class. You see this little boy sitting right in the front, the top right. He was so naughty. He caused chaos. Just note they've got no papers in front of them. How can you expect a class to actually work when they are not inspired with text? They've got no pens, they've got nothing. They're just sitting there. It's looking for a problem in that class. So be cognizant of your classes. We don't want to rule and keep them to keep quiet. We must keep them active and doing things. Otherwise, we can have little chappies like that who are going to be very mischievous in the class and no one's going to learn. So text-based approaches for language learning. What kinds of media can you use in your language class? Think about your texts. What kind of texts? Remember, for our assignment 1, it must be something that is very persuasive, topical, contemporary. What kind of visual material in assignment 1 for the semester? You've also got to have something visual in your text as well. And this last one is, what is the purpose? Why am I doing this? Who's my audience? Who was this text based on? All right. And don't forget, as a teacher, your job is not to be teacher-centered, but to scaffold and mediate. You've got to guide your students into learning. Give them examples of how a paragraph must look like, what keywords are, what different tenses are. Give them those examples. Ask them questions. Let them ask questions. Give templates, models of how they can do things. Give them criteria for how you want it done. Show them how to classify, how to find key points, make lists, read instructions, scan, skim, all the strategies. Show them and then mediate it. Just a task. I'm not going to ask you to do this because I'm going to give you an online tracking quiz to do on this. But if you think about strategies you can use for your learners to develop apostrophe use, or verb agreement, concord, direct speech. What strategies could you use? And what 3 text-based activities could you do to help them acquire one of these grammar rules? So I want them to learn how to ensure verb agreement, okay? Concord, verb and subject agreement. What are 3 things I could do using text that could instill this understanding in them? It's quite complex. You've got to really think about that. And it can't just be rules-based. It's got to be that they're going to inductively discover what those rules are. Okay, that brings me to the end. So what's next? What does Stephen Krashen say? Language acquisition does not require extensive use of conscious grammatical rules and does not require tedious drawl. Okay, so the repetition, the use of rules, please avoid. It's got to be inductive the whole time. And my last little slide here is prioritize fun, okay? And the learning will come. If they're happy to be in your classroom and it's fun and challenging, you are going to achieve everything. So there will be an online tracking quiz for this, and I'll see you all next week with a face-to-face. Hope I see you all. Best wishes as you start. I've had some students already inquiring about assignment 1. Wow, that's not too bad. And that's all due on the 21st. Everything's on ECI at the moment, and I will upload this recording as well. So lovely chatting to you again. Take care and stay safe, stay warm. And we're in August now. The year ahead is coming quickly before you know it's going to be here. So I'm stopping to share now, and I'm saying ciao, ciao.